So, the National Executive Committee of the APC has chosen Abdullahi Ganduje as the party's national chairman. This comes as the party celebrates 10 years of being in existence. We're joined now in the studio by Jideofor, Adibe, who is a professor of political science at Nasarawa State University. Professor, thank you for joining us on Newsnight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, we've been on these before you came in, and then it's important to start from where we ended the last chat. Some would say that the formation of the APC has been questionable, that it was the combination of strange bedfellows, some people from the Action Congress of Nigeria, the Congress for Progressive Change, a breakaway from APGA, and of course some people from ANPP, the All Nigeria People's Party. So how would you describe the formation of the party and how this combination has influenced the evolution of the party in the last 10 years?
Thank you very much. The only difference, I mean, when you said combination of strange bedfellows, most Nigerian political parties tend to follow the same path. They are not, strictly speaking, driven by any philosophical or ideological tendencies. But the difference is that it was a merger. It was the first time that we have had parties collaborating, going into alliances. But it was the first time, strictly speaking, we had a merger of a number of political parties. And these parties were regionally based and revolved around personalities. For example, you had the the Action Congress of Nigeria, which was, which revolved around Tinubu. Then you had the CPC, driven by Buhari. And then you had the rump of APGA, which was led by Okorocha. And then the new PDP, which was led by the former vice president, Atiku Abubakar, Shola Saraki, Tambuwal, and others. So that was just because they revolved around strong personalities, the APC had strong tendencies. There are a number of tendencies within the political party. And you can see it in the way the chairmen of the parties have come around. The founding chairman was Bisi Akonde from the CPC wing. Then came to Yegun, who was from the ANPP wing. And then Mayor Malaboni, who was the caretaker, who was from ANPP. And then back to Shiomole, who was from CPC. So now what we can see is that the NPDP has been annihilated, it's gone moribund. The rump of APGA no longer exists. And many members of the new PDP have either returned to the PDP or have become neutralized. So the CPC, which ordinarily should still be alive because of Buhari hasn't shown strong interest in trying to keep that wing of the party alive. So it's more like the ascendancy of the CPC faction. And that's why somebody made a statement that if even people from the southwest, for you to get now into the corridors of power, you need to know people from Lagos.
Okay, let's talk about the values of this party. When this coalition became APC back in 2013, they had a lot of strong values that it was founded upon. Are these values still evident in the party as today?
I'm not aware of any strong values they had. The value they had was as an aggregation of different tendencies simply to capture power. And Buhari became the presidential candidate precisely because it was calculated he already had a bank of 12 million votes. All he needed was the spread. And so, they realized that it's normally difficult to get a ruling government out of power. So it was necessary to band it together. And then they did it successfully and were able to defeat Jonathan in 2015. And to his credit, he considered defeat.
Professor, some people, some members, some stalwart political bigwigs had left the PDP, like Atiku Abubakar. They joined the APC and then went back to the PDP. I mean, what does this portend for the strength, the political strength of a party like the APC?
Well, most of our political parties, strictly speaking, do not meet up to our definition, classical definition of political parties, because they are just, multi-purpose vehicle for capturing power and positions. And there is no ideological or philosophical element. It's not like, say, in the US, you can say Democratic Party stands for big government and Republican stands for smaller government. The same thing in UK. And when we say ideology, it doesn't necessarily have to be in terms of Marxism, socialism, but philosophical conviction about the nature of government. And that is why you see the idea of carpet crossing, which is actually a parliamentary phenomenon being, imported into a presidential system. Tomorrow, Nkechi can, if you are in a political position and you fail to get it, you cross over to the other end. For them, it's strictly, a vehicle for capturing power and positions, nothing. And they don't make any pretensions about it. You just have to cross over and say, oh, this is the time I've realized that the other party was wasting people's time. And you crossed over less than 2 weeks ago, and the other party had become the demon. And one person said, or it was Oshiomhole, that if you cross over to APC, your sins will be forgiven. So,
talking about sins being forgiven, I don't know if you listened to our chat with Felix Moka when I was asking about the new APC chairman and his legal battles. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
My main interest is to look at their mantra now is a new Nigeria is possible. Now, if you look at Ganduje was the assistant secretary of the Kano state branch of the NPN, the Second Republic. And NPN, you cannot call NPN a progressive party, even though the president wants to see himself as he played progressive politics in terms of being in opposition. And from there, he was commissioner for works as far back as 1994. And then you had the Ganduje, or whatever. You had that thing. And but it's not only him. The Senate president was also had EFCC, and many of the people here. So how are you thinking of a new Nigeria? Yes, you can. I heard Moka talking about go to court and all this, but optics is important in this. So you cannot give what you do not have. Of course, I do accept that sometimes people can get radicalized in power, but you need to convince Nigerians that with very establishment people around. He's 74. I'm not worried about his age. Where is the breath of fresh air? Where is the thing that will make people believe a new Nigerian is possible? The way I look at this thing is that his appointment is because, in my own opinion, Kano State has a big bank of voters. And there was, this Kwakwanso, and it seems he has left the Kwakwanso angle because he had meetings and Kwakwanso said the president offered to work with him. And if you look at the two people he selected from Kano, they were not tied to Kwakwanso. The two dominant blocks in Kano, they were not tied to Kwakwanso and not tied to Ganduje. At the same time, no governor wants the national chairman of a party to come from his state. So the impression you get there is that Tinubu now will play Ganduje against the governor, neutralize them, while the two ministers he appointed that were not tied to two of them, he will use them to create his own base in case there is a relon or even for a second term.
Prof, many of the leaders in the APC claim to be following the social democratic policies and ideologies of the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and that of Aminu Kano. But then, would you say, looking back 10 years, would you say that the APC really came to power with a strong rescue plan, economically and politically?
Well, I don't think any political party, to be fair, not just the APC, the goal is capturing power. They may couch it in very romantic and altruistic terms, but beneath that is just about winning power. Because if you look at the three leading candidates in the last election, they all three are free marketers. Of course, there are differences in terms of their character, in terms of temperament and style. But so that character will determine that if you tell me that I'm going to do this, then I'll believe you're going to do this. Otherwise, basically, Nigerians are more or less, when we say social democratic, I lived a long time in social democratic country like Denmark, more than 10 years there. So if you move from one social democratic country like Denmark to Sweden to Norway, you see variations. And you move from there to Canada, you see variations. So I don't really think, and again, the circumstance of the time of Awolowo was different. The population was smaller. The main drive at that time was to build a kind of a Nigerian middle class, build and empower some Nigeria. It was easy and possible at that time to drive, for example, free education. You cannot possibly do it now if we want to be honest ourselves. Quality education at the tertiary level, free, as in those days, is not possible.
I like that you're not only talking about the APC, even though we're looking at them at the party at 10 years, you're generalizing and saying, look, in Nigeria, all our political parties, they don't have ideologies that they stand for, no philosophy. So there's definitely a root problem. So if APC wins today or PDP wins tomorrow or Labour or any other party, it's just the same thing. So what are some of the ideologies that make up a political party?
No, when you say ideology, people tend to think in terms of Marxism, socialism. And let me say one thing. There's a joke we normally make. People who say no ideology, is it self-ideological? Because if you say no ideology, then the ideology is no ideology. That's what I say. The aim is to capture power. And because the aim is to capture power, that is the reason why you will move from one political party today and to another without any qualms.
A big thank you to you. You've really tried to do justice to our conversation tonight. We want to say a big thank you to you, Professor Jideofor Adibe, Professor of Political Science, Nasarawa State University. Thank you very much for coming to Newsnight.
Thank you very much.